Recently, in a video titled, "Stop Telling Atheists to Go to Church," Matt Dillahunty was debating a guy by the name of Douglas Murray. And they were actually debating different perspectives of atheism, or, different viewpoints of how atheism should be utilized. And Douglas Murray was like, we need to get back in touch with going to church. And Matt Dillahunty was like, why? Like, why should we? But in that video, as often happens, when one atheist is being open with another atheist, and I'm sure Matt has shared this at other times, but he shared this phrase, this end-all, be-all phrase that he kind of measures things by. And I tell people this often. And I'm pretty much just going to focus this video on this one phrase because it is luscious and dripping with insight. And this is kind of his be-all, end-all foundational phrase when it comes to, should we believe in God or not? And he states it like this: do I have a good enough reason to believe this? Do I have a good enough reason to believe this? And this is his go-to, his foundation. This is so subjectively focused that it is actually nonsensical. Now, I understand where he's coming from because he doesn't believe that God exists. He believes that, we came from, I guess he believes we came from evolution. I mean, what other options do you really have? But whatever the backdrop is there. But true, absolute objectivity that would be, founded in God is not there. And so a man, the own person, is, the foundation of what you're going to believe or not believe, which is really kind of strange. But the clarity that comes in here is this: do I have a good enough reason to believe this? Which is actually an appeal to objectivity, but it's centered in subjective analysis. It's, do I have good enough reason to believe this? Now, when you make self and your mind the measure of everything, you get really, really skewed. You get biased. You become closed-minded to information that could change everything. And so actually the way he phrased the end part of it, he's appealing to objectivity, but it's by a subjective measurement. Is it good enough by my reckoning? This is so dangerous. I've made other videos about this, one that I call gatekeeping. If you're handed a piece of information that is objective and is good and is useful, but you deny it, and then you're handed another piece of objective information that is really, really good, but you deny it, and you're handed another piece of objective information that is good, but you deny it, you're starting to build this pattern and this theme, and then new pieces of information that should be helping to convince you, because you've already got this storehouse of information that you have rejected that is not good enough for you to believe. You're gatekeeping, and you're not allowing real information in the door, and you're justifying it more and more and more by the information that you have denied. But what else does an atheist have to lean upon except for the subjective stance, the not really good foundation except for what I think or what I believe? And he stated that. A better way to have stated that would have been like, is there a good enough reason to believe this? That would have been so much more subjective. And I want you to think about this. Here is a premier atheist, someone who has supposedly gone through the paces and done all of the really deep thinking and research. And even as his job, he proclaimed in the video, he's like, I even go to church now to make sure that my perspective is up to date on what's going on in the church. And so you'd think this guy's really thinking things through. But his go-to is a subjective, is this good enough for me? That's not really looking for truth. That's not really looking for if there's good enough truth out there. Because all of us should be open-minded to be corrected, should we not? But he has stated that, we are the judge of things in this. That's the backdoor implication here, is do I have a good enough reason to believe this? Not, is there a good enough reason to believe this that would controvert me, even if it hurts and even if I was wrong about this and had the wrong logic, the wrong conclusions, etc. But let's dive into his statement a little further, since it's dripping with details here. He says, do I have a good enough... Well, all of a sudden, Matt has put sunglasses on his followers, placed a bag over their head, taken them into a basement with no windows, turned off the lights, and built a dome over the home that all that's going on in so that sunlight never, ever reaches this person. When you describe a metric, subjective metric, and you include terms like good in it, that is also incredibly subjective. I mean, like, how do we define what good is? Is it objective, or is it just subjective as well? What is the nature of good? And even Dawkins was tripped up by this a while back when Alex O'Connor was asking him, like, how do you define good? And he's like, because it is something that we ascertain, that we assent to, that we intuitively know that there is such a thing as good. But all of a sudden, Matt is just kind of stealing that language that has implied meanings, that has implied assumptions, etc. And he's using that in a subjective manner and not even explaining any of it. Is it good enough? What does that even mean? Like, is there a points metric here? Is there, what do we go by? So he says, do I have a good enough reason? Now, all of a sudden, when you begin to appeal to reason, what are you actually appealing to? This is something to think about, because Matt's followers are assuming that he has done the heavy lifting, that he has done the mental work to come to the conclusions that he has come to, and they're actually in an exchange with him, not to be subjective, but to actually be subservient to. Like, in a sense, I'm going to this guy to make sure that my thinking about something is right and proper, even though Matt seems to be pushing out this subjective metric. But if there's two of us that are considering a point, aren't we really looking for a third reference point of true objectivity, of factuality? Isn't that what the search is about? So all of a sudden there's this flip from subjective searching, from some kind of stance on whatever good is, to reason. And what do you mean by reason? Is that something that man has just created? Like baseball. Man came up with baseball. There's rules for baseball. There is refinement for baseball. There's ways that baseball works. There's ways that baseball doesn't work, as long as we all agree on how it works. Pretty good system. Is that the reason that he's talking about? That a bunch of people with IQs over 100 got together and just kind of deciphered what logic is or is not? Or is there some kind of concrete structure to it? And if there is a concrete structure to it, it isn't about whether it's good enough for me to believe or not. It's about whether it's true or not. Is that what he means by this statement? So he says, do I have a good enough reason, and catch this, to believe this? All of a sudden, Matt has introduced into the equation one of the truest parts about all of this that makes it so interesting, is that we are dependent, weak, lacking of information, lacking of computational power human beings who can't grasp everything. We can't get a hold of everything. And by simply stating that we have to believe certain things, you're putting us in a boat where everything can't be final. And Matt has to assent to this. There's no way not to assent to this. At the groundwork level of our lives, there are base assumptions. There are assumptions that we have to take based by faith, which is kind of why the reason he inserted that. Do I have a good enough reason? He inserted good and all the snuck in ideas that come with that we kind of access internally, but he just kind of snuck that into the framework as being purely logical or purely reasonable or purely foundational, when it actually includes something more like the soul or the spirit or the consciousness to more discern what good is. So, but he has taken us to this last and final part of the phrase by saying, believe. Do I need to believe this? And believe means that I've got some amount of information, and it might be right or it might not be right, but how much of it stacks up to seem right and correct? And this is actually how we do things. This isn't uncommon to any of us. With enough presentation, we can decide, can I lean on this metric or not? Can I believe because of how much this aligns with the way things seem to be? And so all of a sudden here, Matt begins to talk about your religion, your inner religion of what you believe or don't believe. And since it's all subjective, I guess you can take it or leave it on a whim. So anyhow, I found that statement just unsettling because it doesn't really take us anywhere, and it makes so many assumptions, and it incorporates so many looping scenarios that it really doesn't take us anywhere. The point being that God obviously gives us heavy foundations to lean upon, things that make sense, things that seem right and good and true, and we're called to believe. So if an atheist is telling you to believe something, but it's their own personal subjective opinion, versus millions of people are telling you something and asking you to believe based on lots and lots and lots of data and lots of experiences and lots of philosophical underpinning and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That what path am I going to choose? Now, here's something that was stated in the video that I thought was just pretty sad. And I hope this isn't where you find yourself, but this Douglas Murray guy, he stated that pretty much that atheism is a lonely place. See, he's actually kind of gone down the road of atheism. Maybe you should check out my videos on type 1 and type 2 atheism, because I believe Douglas Murray might be like one of the types and Matt Dillahunty the second type. And there's a fantastic difference between the two, because one is a blinded atheist and one is an unenlightened atheist, and there's just big difference between the two. So Douglas Murray here talks about the loneliness of atheism, and so he's like, maybe we should hang on to what we had. Like, maybe we should engage with what brought us here. And basically he was referencing back that a lot of people in the Catholic Church are atheists, and a lot of people in the Jewish synagogues, I almost said Jewish churches, and that would have got me in a lot of trouble. But in these Jewish synagogues, that a lot of them are atheists. And he's like, we need to participate in this religious framework, because it is really lonely if we don't. Well, it's even worse than that. If you are measuring everything subjectively by your opinion, by what you think is strong enough or not strong enough, or should I allow this in or shouldn't I allow that out, in, etc., because of how I feel or what I want to see as the outcome, subjective measurement is going to lead you to a very, very lonely place. And no wonder Douglas Murray is trying to figure out, how do we get out of that without assenting to God? But it's actually better to assent to God, because all the paths that he has laid out are beautiful and productive and fulfilling. I'm going to leave it there for now.